lakes and ponds begin to freeze. A chilly northern ocean breeze stirs brightly decorated trees. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time. Through the windows, twinkling light, see the family so excited. Share with friends that they've invited. Cape Cod's Christmas time. Everybody thinks of snow, but if the weather's clear, Santa Claus may have to go by fishing boat this year. Spirits bright as winter moons, happy smiles, familiar tunes, walks across the frosty dunes. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time. Santa Claus may have to go by a fishing boat this year. People fill the churches when the Christmas pageants tell again of he who promised peace to men. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time.
Oh, I love that song. That takes me back to when I was a kid growing up on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And the gentleman who wrote and performed that song, at least I think he wrote it, is on the phone with me right now, Mr. Bob Thatcher, who no longer lives on Cape Cod. He actually lives somewhere in Florida. Is that right, Bob?
That's correct, Todd.
Where are you located?
I'm down in Englewood, which is on the west side of Florida, on a gulf.
So you must have gotten hit by the most recent hurricane and probably the ones before that.
I had a terrible time with the most recent one. I had to drive down to Miami to avoid it and rent a motel room for the night. It wasn't easy.
Well, how about damage to your current home? Did you have any?
No, I live in an apartment, so there was no damage at all.
So when did you relocate from Cape Cod to Florida?
Actually, I've been away from the Cape since 2001, and I regret it, to be honest with you, because I love the Cape. You know, I was born and raised there, and it's just one of those things. I got married, and we had kids, and one thing led to another. We were in New Mexico for 7 years, and then we moved from New Mexico to Florida, and we've been here now since about 2008. So.
Gosh, now what had gotten you to move to New Mexico?
I don't know. I think we wanted a drier climate, less, Cape Cod dampness.
Yep.
Especially in the winter, and it turned out to be very dry out there and very hot. I should have figured that it'd have to be the flip side of that coin.
Sure. Well, let's go back to the song. It is my absolute favorite non-traditional Christmas song. Has been from the first day I heard it.
Yeah.
And when I perform, and I wrote a Christmas song for Frederick, Maryland, where I live. It's called Fredericktown Christmas, and it sounds nothing like yours, but that my intent was to give it the same vibe that Cape Cod Christmastime has. And unfortunately, it turned out, not that that's bad, but it turns out to sound like a Chicago Transit Authority song.
No, nothing wrong with that either. But.
Yeah, because of the chord structure. But anyway, and the fellow who played drums on it. But when did you write the song?
Okay, let's go back to 1983. Let me start by saying that this was my father's who wrote the lyrics, and I wrote the music. And then we wrote together for like 2 years. We wrote about 30 songs together. So it was just something that that most sons and fathers don't get an opportunity to do once they're adults. And so anyway, we put the record out in '84, and it got some airplay. And it's gotten some airplay here and there, but nobody will take it because it's never been published.
Now, why did you not publish it?
I don't know. We just weren't thinking, I guess. It turned out to be a real a problem as far as radio stations wanted to take a chance with it.
Sure.
We had one radio station, WPLM, that was interested in it, but where they couldn't find a publisher. I mean, they couldn't find a writer. I mean, somebody who actually owned the song. So it's just kind of sitting on my shelf right now, and it gets played occasionally on the Cape, but I think it's still a well-liked song. I'm glad to hear you say that, but it was a lot of fun to make that record. It's only got one other musician on it. It's Danny Clemmer is the drummer. I don't know if you know him. He's from West Harwich.
Yeah, I don't.
Did you say you were in Maryland?
Currently, I moved here in 1990 from the Cape.
Oh, okay.
And and I remember you from the Hennessy Brothers, of course, because
that's right. Yeah.
My best friend Rich Brackold and I were named Richard Todd, and we played the Sub and Pub in West Dennis and the Sand Trap in South Yarmouth. And then I would go to see you guys because I always looked at you guys as like, those are the guys I want to be.
Yeah, we had a good band in the 70s.
Oh, it was
good.
Fantastic. And, you know, I love the brothers, but I always thought the best part of the band was the bass player.
Well, that was me.
Yeah, that's right. It was you. And if I recall, didn't you have like a dark cherry red, maybe a Gibson bass? I can't remember what it was.
My first bass I had was a Gibson Les Paul. It was a brownish kind of an instrument, and I used that for 6 or 7 years, and then I eventually ended up getting a Fender Precision.
Okay, then I saw you with the Gibson because that's the one I tend to remember.
Yeah, it had a nice sound too. It really did.
Now, I don't remember you singing many leads in that group. You were kind of
No, I didn't sing much at all back then. That was pretty much the brothers that did the singing.
Yeah.
And I became a singer later on in my career.
Now, what started you and your dad writing?
I have no idea. He just had the best thing I can say is that he had a bunch of music that had already been written, and he would hand me a sheet of music, and I would be able to knock off a song in about 15 minutes.
Wow.
And it was just one of those things where our genetic connection seemed to work together. And so it was fairly easy for me to write a song because he knew how to write lyrics. You know, as you can tell just from that song, he knows how to put a bridge in, and he knows how songs work. And so for me, it was fairly easy because I understood how songs work too.
So I would assume then you just needed to find a key that worked for your vocal.
Pretty much, yeah. I would pick up the key, and that's how it would go.
Now, you said that other than the drums, you played all the instruments on that.
Well, no. Other than the drums, yeah. I played all... Actually, that Matt Reed played... a guy by the name of Matt Reed, who was my cousin, played a violin line on the side 2 of that record, One More Christmas. But otherwise, I played all the instruments, correct, and with Danny Clemmer on drums.
Now, where did you get your musical training from, and when did that start? Were you like a little kid or what?
Just a little kid. My father got me a ukulele when I was about 5, and I just took it from there. When I was about 14, I got into my first high school band, and I became a bass player by rote. I had to do it because nobody else could. And, I wasn't very good at first, but as time went on, I got better and better. Now,
had you had formal music training, though, theory and things?
No, I basically came up through that Hennessy Brothers thing. I did do some musical work in Boston. You remember the Boston Phoenix?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was how I got my first professional gig, by answering an ad from the Phoenix, and I got the gig, and I was with them for 2 or 3 years, and then I was with a couple of other bands. But anyway, I settled in with the Hennessy Brothers about 1974, and I was with them for about 6 years. So that was a good training ground.
Now, the brothers ended up playing together for a while, didn't they? After you left, or did they break up as well?
No,
musically.
What happened was that the older brother got married and moved off to Connecticut, and the other brother got together with a guy from, I don't know if you remember Roundhouse.
Oh, yes.
But there was their bass player, Reggie O'Keefe, was a singer and a bass player, and he formed a duo with Mark, and they became Henhouse.
Oh, okay.
And they were very, very popular. You couldn't even move wherever they played. It was packed. And but anyway, later on, I started playing with Mark again as a duo here and there, and then eventually I made the mistake of leaving the Cape and moving to New Mexico, and that was the end of that. But
now, didn't I see a photo on your Facebook page of you and several other musicians, and it had the word jazz somewhere written in it? Did you play jazz for a while?
Well, I played in a jazz group called 1 O'Clock Jump. Yeah, you might have seen that band. That was a band. What we did was we did 30s and 40s vocal jazz, like Kalamazoo, that kind of music. And we were together for 2.5 years, and I got a lot of experience playing with them too.
Now, do you still play?
No, I don't play. I don't even have an instrument, which is troubling me quite a bit right now, because I feel I should, every once in a while I get the urge to grab a guitar and play a song. And I just got to the point where I figured I was all done as a musician when I reached my mid-60s. And so pretty much I'm retired at the moment.
Well,
as far as music goes.
You ended up working for one of the banks on the Cape for a while, didn't you?
Yes, and that's the reason why I kind of quit music, because I got a steady job at Cape Cod 5, and I worked for them for about 10 years. And that's when we moved to New Mexico, and I never was able to find any kind of steady music work since then. So
now
that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Now, if you had in your possession now, you had a bass with a bass amp and a guitar, whether it's an electric guitar with an amp or an acoustic guitar, which would be the first of the two that you'd pick up when you just felt like playing some music?
Probably the acoustic guitar, because it's hard to play bass by yourself. You know, you got to have some other musicians with you.
That is true.
Although when I first learned how to play bass, I would play it by myself, because that's how I learned how to play.
Sure.
But later on, it definitely would be the acoustic guitar, just to play some music. I did several solo acts. You do too, don't you?
Yes, mine now is almost all solo. Once in a great while, some friends will say, let's do a little ensemble for a specific show. Like the Songs of Canada or something along that line, because I do a lot of Gordon Lightfoot songs. So they'll say, you do the Gordon Lightfoot and we'll do the harmonies if there are any and stuff like that. But no, the last time I was in a group was the Richard Todd duo on the Cape, and that ended in the, not about the same time that the Hennessy Brothers, maybe even probably.
Well, we ended in 1980, the Hennessy Brothers.
Yeah, I think we ended a year or two before that.
Okay. Did you ever record at the John Todd studio?
No, that was the other question. Where did you record Cape Cod Christmastime?
At the John Todd Studios in East Dennis. That's where I recorded both versions of Cape Cod Christmastime. I did make a tape about 6 years later, which had a whole tape of Christmas songs. It wasn't just Cape Cod Christmastime, but it was like 6 or 7 other songs too. and unfortunately that didn't go anywhere. But I did have the enjoyment of and the experience of recording it in a real studio.
Now, back then I was clueless as to studios. We were so in tune with playing live because that's where the girls hung out. That we didn't do any original stuff. We just did covers. So recording was not on our horizon. So let's put it that way. But
I gotcha.
now, was he a Cape Cod boy, or had he moved there to open the studio?
John, I don't know where he came from, to be honest with you. I just know that the studio was open at the time, back in the 80s. And we did a lot of recording there. He was really the only place that I recorded at. And he did a good job at it, too.
Well, the result, I mean, at least for the version I have, which you said you think is the 45 version, right?
Yeah, the one I just listened to was the original version, which most people think is better because it's just got a little pep to it.
Uh-huh.
The second version was a little bit too slow and a little bit too long. I got fancy with adding things to the song that didn't really need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And people have told me that. So people like the original, the one that you just played, best. And I expect to hear it played around the Cape at Christmas time, one way or another. I have a friend who usually puts it on Facebook and plays it.
Well, and I have done so. And if it's okay with you, I will link from my podcast to Facebook so they can hear the song, for one, and also our conversation. Because, I was back on the Cape. I go back once or twice a year to visit my brother Lynn, who now goes by the name of Frank, and I think he was the same year.
Lynn Walker, okay.
Yeah.
I went to high school with him.
Yes, you did. And I was a couple years ahead of you.
Oh, okay. So you were at DUA. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you graduated, what, 1970?
1970, same year as Frank.
Yeah, and I graduated in 68, so.
Okay. Well, that's a real coincidence.
It is, and that's why it's drawn me to the song. Well, one, even if I was not from Cape Cod and I had no connection to it whatsoever, if I heard this song, I love melody. I love that nice light feel to a song, and I love lyrics that
makes sense and
make sense, and also don't tell the complete story, if that makes any sense. They allow the person who's listening to create their own picture instead of forcing it on them.
That's true. Yeah. Now I should say that my drummer Danny Clemmer has a real light touch. He uses a lot of brush work,
Uh-huh.
and he's just a terrific drummer, in my opinion, and that's what helps give that song that kind of nice washy way. It's slow and
it almost
slow.
skips along, sort of.
Yeah.
So now I don't remember whether I purchased this as a CD with the 45 version with the other. I don't think I have the other song, but I don't remember, because I looked for it. I couldn't find it for the longest time, and I ended up, I don't know where I found it. I might have found it on eBay, of all things. Who knows?
That would be interesting.
But I have just this. I don't have the other song. What's the second side?
Well, the second song is a song called "One More Christmas." It's a kind of a sappy love song about a guy whose girlfriend is breaking up with him around Christmas time, and he's asking for one more Christmas together.
Gotcha.
But it was a tape. The second one was a tape, and it didn't go very well. It didn't go over too well. But the 45 was probably the best arrangement that we ever did of it, because it has a little pep to it.
Yep.
I went a little overboard with effects. When you get in the studio, you think, oh, that'll sound good. I put like some church bells in there, and it didn't really work. And I tried to put some ocean waves in there, and that didn't work. So anyway, the session the version that you just played for me is the best one. I think most people agree.
And you did all the vocal parts.
I did all the vocal parts. Yeah.
Now, are you usually a harmonizer, or did you have to search around to come up with harmonies?
No, I could figure those harmonies out because I'd had some experience playing with this 1 O'Clock Jump Band, which used to be a band called Razzmatazz. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
I have.
Okay, so you know that they were a terrific harmonizing trio, and they did all the 30s and 40s stuff. So anyway, getting back to that 1 O'Clock Jump Band, that was probably the band that I really learned my harmonizing with. You know, I had to play the bass and sing the third harmony part.
Which
So I put a lot of work into doing that, and it was a good band.
Now, if you had had the choice based on the fact that you could make the same amount of money playing music that you were able to when you worked at the bank, which would you have chosen?
Well, it's funny. It was at the time that I went to the bank, I was happy at the bank because I wasn't making enough money as a musician. And you know how bands break up all the time?
That's why I'm a soloist.
Yeah, well, that's why you're a soloist. And see, I've done solo work myself from time to time just to get by. And so anyway, what was I saying?
Well,
I think it's the time of your life when some things seem better than others. At the time I worked at the bank, that seemed like what I should be doing.
Right.
Because it was a steady paycheck for once.
Yeah, and you had kids at that point in time.
I've got a total of 3 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, were they any of them musical?
My son Ben is a violinist for the New Orleans Symphony.
Wow.
And he's quite good. I mean, he's a real trained musician, which I never was. I never learned how to read.
Well, you know what? Very many of the iconic musicians, singer-songwriters, if you will, don't read music. Paul McCartney doesn't read music.
Of course not, no. In fact, none of the Beatles read.
Yeah.
They had, who was their manager, the older guy?
In the studio or the actual management?
Their management, he was always in the studio, though. He was a real
Martin.
trained musician. I can't think of his name right now. He was considered the 5th.
Yes, that would be George Martin. And I think I lost you there for some reason. Let's give Bob a call back here. Let's see. There it is. It's ringing.
Hey, Todd.
Hey there. I don't know why it dropped out, but it did.
Oh, it happens.
Yeah. In fact, in my house, in order to do the podcasts or actually be able to have phone conversations, I had to buy what's called an extender, and it attaches to the modem, and it gives me 5 bars. If I'm on the phone and I walk out of the house and get in my car to drive away, from the time I get in the car to the end of my driveway, the phone drops.
Okay.
Until I get to the end of the street, and then it comes right back on. I'm in one of those little dead spots. So it might have
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it might have been me.
But listen, I just wanted to tell you that I'm really happy to hear that you've thought about playing it with some type of a hookup. You're free to play it anytime you want.
Well, I will, but off mic, we will have another conversation on how to get it published for you. It's not difficult at all.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive, though, isn't it?
Nope, you'd be surprised.
No kidding.
Yeah. And if you don't want to do it, I will do it so that it's a 50-50 because you have to. But anyways, you could be the publisher and the songwriter. But anyways, we'll discuss that at a future time. We won't bore the people listening with that.
That's right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because the song needs to be out there. It is such a catchy song. And as we both know, growing up on Cape Cod, and now it's become more of a year-round community. People, but when we grew up, it was still a summer place. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, I've got 4 Cape Cod sweatshirts. I go to Cuffy's every year when I'm on the Cape to buy another Cuffy's sweatshirt that says Cape Cod on it. course,
Yeah.
growing up on Cape Cod, you wouldn't be caught dead in a Cape Cod sweatshirt.
No.
But down here, I've even worn it when I do my video gear reviews. I do have a YouTube channel.
So you kind of miss the Cape too, huh?
I do. I don't miss the weather,
Yeah.
but I do miss
Well,
the
the
Cape.
weather has gotten better, I think. As far as it's not as much snow, I don't think, and from everything I hear, the fall stretches right through November, pretty much.
Yep.
So
Now
that's not too bad. It's damp and cold in March, but the rest of the time the weather isn't ideal. Let's just put it that way.
And I was a surfer, and I surfed the outer Cape Cod outer beaches all the way through until I moved down here in 1990. And now with the great white shark population because of the sea lions, there's no way you'd catch me going in the water off of.
No, people have died from doing that.
Oh, absolutely. And although Florida has lots of shark attacks, there are smaller sharks. They're not great whites. And
Right. You don't want a great white, that's for sure.
No, well, I don't mind seeing them at an aquarium.
Yeah, but you don't want to be swimming with one.
No, not at all. So if you had an acoustic guitar, would you start writing, or would you go just start playing some of the songs you
I
played?
just start playing. My writing days are over. You see, I really had to have my father around to write songs, and he's right now he's got an advanced dementia, and he's in a rest home, and so he's kind of out of it. But
now, do you have copies of some of his lyrics?
I wouldn't know where to find him right now because like I said, he's in a rest home, and I don't know what happened to all of his stuff.
Yeah. Now,
I should have copies, but I can remember some of them by just listening to various tapes. But like that Cape Cod Christmas song, I can remember if I have to.
Yeah.
And
now, do you have?
Otherwise, to answer your question, I like to do Beatles and a lot of 60s and 70s stuff.
Well, most of my repertoire of covers are those songs, and I think, oh gosh, the young people aren't going to like this, and I will play in a mixed, like go to a winery where you have all age range, and the young kids will come up sometimes. And when I say young kids, people in their 20s who are of drinking age so they can buy the wine or the beer, they'll come up and they'll say, thank you so much for playing those Beatles songs or those America songs or whatever, because my parents played those when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, the kids love these songs.
Yep.
Now that you bring that up, I wanted to mention Mark Hennessy, who, by the way, passed away a couple of years ago.
I had read that.
But he used to do a song called Build Me Up Buttercup.
Of course. It's a great song.
And the kids would love that song. And I'm talking about young kids who had just gotten their drinking, gotten their ability to buy a drink, 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they knew those old songs that we grew up in high school with just as well as we did.
Yeah. My son, Corey, who is now, I have to think he's got to be 37. He called when we first got on air here, and I just had to, I'll call him back. He had asked me probably before COVID, he goes, Dad, you know what song you should sing? I said, what's that, Corey? He goes, Build Me Up Buttercup.
Yeah, Build Me Up Buttercup they were from Jamaica, I think.
Oh,
the
wow.
Foundations.
Yeah.
And on the other side, they had one hit. Actually, they had two hits. The other side of that record was Baby, Now That I Found You, I Can Let You Go.
I love that song.
One. So with one record, they made a fortune for the rest of their life.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. Never heard from them again, but they had that one good record.
So if you had the chance to go back in the studio, and whether you played an instrument or not, but you were allowed to sing, would you want to do that?
Yeah, but my vocal range has diminished quite a bit, and my playing ability has diminished quite a bit because I haven't had any instruments around. I could get that back, don't get me wrong, but it would take a little practice, take a couple of weeks of practice.
Well, I did a YouTube video about 4 months ago about guitar tunings for older players.
Yeah.
And the reason I did it is back in the day, performing in Boston and on the Cape and Maine and places like that, we were always tuned to pitch. And then about 15 years ago, that became more difficult, maybe even 20 years ago. So I started tuning a half step down. And then that started to become a little bit of a problem. So now there was twofold. I started to tune down a full step because I needed to drop it to get my vocal range where it was comfortable. And the other was...
So you know what I'm talking about then.
Oh, absolutely. And a bass player friend of mine says, if you want me to play with you, I have to retune my bass a half step down. He says, if you would tune a full step down, it's really easy because all the dots line up. So I did. But yes, you're absolutely right. Because I don't know, do you still have a falsetto?
Not really.
No.
I never really had one to begin with.
Well, I did, but mine now is just air. There's no sound that comes out. So, oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did have a falsetto, because in the early part of my musical career, I wasn't singing at all. Mm-hmm. But later on, when I got with 1 O'Clock Jump, I started singing. But I wasn't singing falsetto. I was singing just vocals that I could reach the note.
Well, you have a very pleasant singing voice.
Well, thank you. I like to think so, too.
Yeah, and one thing I have learned from listening and of course observing some of my favorite singers over time, and I'm actually surprised sometimes when I think they're 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 years older than me, and I find out I'm older than they are. But anyways, our voices, as long as we weren't a heavy smoker or did damage by screaming in heavy metal bands, our voices, although we do get lower in pitch, we develop character. And sometimes character really, really makes a song.
Makes the difference, huh? Yeah,
it does.
Everybody was a smoker back in those days. It seems like, wasn't it?
It does seem like more people smoked back then, yes.
Yeah. Now, whatever happened to Lynn? Is he or Frank? Is he doing well?
He's health-wise, he still lives on the Cape. He lives on, I won't say where he lives, but he's kind of halfway between the north side and the south side. And he's been in kind of landscaping, tree work and stuff his whole life. And it's basically just beat his body down. So he has a lot of physical ailments because of that.
Well, I do too. I got some deep... in my knees, I have deep arthritis.
No, I think I saw a photo with you with a cane. Is that why? I
hardly walk because of it.
Yeah.
So it does happen.
Yeah, it's when I was still younger, and when I say younger, about 20, 25 years ago, I had a woman, I sold a nice German lady I sold a condominium to, because I've been in real estate for a long time. Yeah. And she had said, she goes, "Don't get old, Todd. It's not for sissies." And I was still young enough and vibrant enough, going, okay. Now I know what she meant. Yeah, I know what you mean. The body just has it.
You and I are about you said you're a couple of years older than me, but we're close enough in age to know.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No. And unfortunately, when we get to this age, and we're not talking just specifically ourselves, but everyone in our age range, now, unfortunately, we're starting to lose friends and people we grew up with. And
people
again,
die.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about that.
Nope. Absolutely. So.
In fact, I just had a friend die a couple of days ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
It's
so, and like I said, Mark Hennessy died, and he was only 68. He got cancer.
Oh gosh. And I looked up Mike, and he's still performing, I think, isn't he?
It probably is. He lives in Florida. He lives in Naples.
Oh, okay.
And now, did you say you're living in Maryland?
Yes. And my first wife was from Frederick, Maryland, and I met her in Boston.
Maryland, yeah.
And she had always wanted to move back to Maryland. And then I owned Cinnamon Rainbow's surf shop in Orleans. And when the when the recession of the late 80s hit, I was a rep in the surfing industry, and the business was just going downhill. And an opening came up in the Mid-Atlantic states for one of my clothing lines. They asked
Yeah.
if I'd moved down, and my wife said, yes, let's move down because we can live in Ocean City, where she went to the beach when she was a kid, and I could be close to
Yeah.
my parents. So we moved down here, and then the bottom fell out of the surfing industry,
No.
and I kind of searched around for a year and a half, and finally ended up getting pushed into real estate, which was the best thing that ever happened to me financially, helped pay for my kids' college, things like that. And I had put my guitar away from the time I moved down here, and even a little before that, until probably 2000.
Okay.
And I went to see Livingston Taylor.
Oh, did you really?
And the fellow who opened for him, who was then out of the Boston area, now he's out of Nashville, he came out with this gorgeous-looking acoustic guitar, and he was wonderful, had a great voice. And then, of course, Livingston Taylor came out, who's the consummate entertainer. And I'm sitting there with my two young kids, who complained that I had drugged them to the theater. And I went back to my apartment because I was separated at the time, or even divorced. And I thought, I used to have that much fun playing guitar. So I got the guitar out from under the bed and started to play songs, and I just kept on going. So it'll happen to you too.
So you're back in the business. That's good. I
am. I don't play out as much as I used to because COVID closed down many of the coffee shops, which was my kind of...
True, yeah.
I do run some shows. I was booking agent for a while from some of the wineries and things like that. And I do a Sunday brunch concert series in the summertime. There's a little outdoor theater that we have that's just cute as a button. And I perform if somebody cancels last minute, and I try to give myself at least one date. So it's a lot of fun.
So wine is big in Maryland?
Oh, yes.
Well, I never knew that.
Yeah, wine, beer, and distilleries.
Yeah. Huh. I never knew that at all.
Yeah, I would not have thought of that because we always thought of wine as being, in Europe or in California.
That's how I would have thought. Yeah.
I mean, there's even wineries in Florida, which I don't quite understand because of the warmth. But anyways, I don't know how good their wine is, but
I've never heard of any Florida wine. So
I don't think there are many.
It's not real big.
No.
But
well, I hope you can get back into playing.
Well, eventually I will. I've got to get the ambition to go out and get another guitar, but because I'm suffering so much with physical pains, it's something I have to really consider if I do that.
Yeah. Now, when you played acoustic guitar, what body style was it? Was it a dreadnought or a smaller?
No, it was just a regular size acoustic. My first acoustic was a Gibson Heritage, a 72 Gibson Heritage. What a beautiful guitar that was.
Oh, John Sebastian played one of those for a long time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And then I got into playing bass, and I just usually had some kind of a acoustic guitar around. Usually that Gibson Heritage, because like I said, I did do some single work just to make ends meet.
Sure.
And
the one thing about when we used to play out and play with an acoustic guitar, pickups were, unless you had a sound hole, the Armin pickup that sounded like an electric guitar, you had to put a mic in front. And in today's world, and I'm a dealer installer for a company called KK Sound, which is the most natural sounding pickups, but it still doesn't sound the way a guitar sounds with a microphone in front. And the only problem with some of the venues now is the room is so noisy that if you put a microphone out in front of a guitar, the noise from the room goes into that sound hole, comes out, and it just distorts and feedback.
Yeah.
But I would love to be able to do a performance where the mic is sitting out front, because it is just
that's the way to do it if you can.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just...
That's the way I always did it. I never had a cord hanging out of my acoustic.
Yep.
It was always a microphone.
Now, you guys played Sundancers right across the Bass River there for a long time, didn't you? Or was
Sundancers, originally that was called Snowden's.
That's right.
And
yeah.
I did quite a bit of work at Snowden changed it to Sundancers.
Yeah.
And it was a very popular night spot on the Cape. And
still there?
Yeah, I played there quite a bit. That was where Hen House really hit it big.
Oh, okay.
they were playing there like 3 or 4 nights a week, and you couldn't even move.
Yeah. Well, it's still there. I drove by it when I was on the Cape back in end of September.
That's got to be different ownership, because Bill Snowden has had a lot of problems throughout the years, with drinking and so forth.
Yep. Yep.
And so it must be under different ownership now.
I think he got into politics for a while too, didn't he?
Oh, he's very political, yeah.
Yeah. Because he was a Facebook acquaintance of mine for a number of years. He's disappeared. I don't know if that's because he's no longer on Facebook, or maybe he just dropped out.
No, he's on Facebook. I've talked to him quite a few times during the whole election, the last year of election.
Yeah. Well,
we had different opinions about who we like, but
well, I remember when he went out for football.
Yeah.
And he was kind of a outspoken person at the time, and people didn't give people didn't give him the time of day. Even the coach, I don't think, really liked him. They put him on the line. I can't remember if he was a tackle or a guard. And all I remember was some of the other players who were friends of mine begrudgingly decided or said, you know what? I don't necessarily like him as a person. He's kind of what they referred to as a blowhard at the time.
Yeah.
But he was a scrappy football player, and he would reach in and grab ankles, and he actually was very, very good at it.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So
that sounds like Bill.
Yeah.
Actually, he's not a bad guy once you get to know him.
Oh, no, not at all. I always enjoyed chatting with him.
Yeah.
But but anyways, this has been fun catching up with you, Bob.
Same to you, Todd. I really appreciate the call. And listen, anytime you want to play that song on your whatever you have going there, you got my permission.
Well, although I don't cover it, although I had a friend when I posted it on my email, I have a listener, because I used to send out a weekly email telling people where people are playing different, venues and stuff like that. And occasionally around Christmas time, I would send an MP3 along with the email. And I had one girl who's a very good singer. She says, the next time you sing that song, I want to sing harmony on it. And I just never got around to learning it. But that's the reason I wrote Fredericktown Christmas, is because of your song, yours and your dad's. So thank you.
Oh, did you? No kidding.
Yeah, it doesn't sound anything like it, of course.
Yeah.
But once you and I finish the conversation, I'm going to play the song again because I think it needs to be heard. And now, do you text on your phone, or is it just
No, I'm very limited as far as technology goes. I just I can get back and forth to you on my computer. I've got a laptop.
Okay. Well,
the same way we've been talking on laptop for the last couple of days.
Okay. Well, we're going to have this discussion about getting the song published so it can be heard more.
It sounds good. And listen, I really appreciate all the kind things you've said, and it's really helpful, because I kind of put that song out of my mind. I know I shouldn't, because it's a good song.
Oh, it's a terrific song.
Yeah. Now, do you have the album, the record cover? It's got a picture of a Santa Claus in a sailboat, or not a sailboat, but just a boat.
I may have it somewhere, but again, I've got so many CDs.
Yeah. You got a 45 on this, right? That sounded like the 45 that I heard. Yeah,
but I don't think because I don't have a record player to play a 45, so I must have found it somewhere else.
You must have found it and recorded it.
Maybe, but it's a very clean recording, the one I have. So I'm going to search around for the 45, because I have recently purchased a turntable, so I would be able to play it.
Yeah, I've only got one out of all the 40. When we made this record, we made something like 5,000 copies. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you we didn't sell that many, but we'd give them to families and friends and stuff like that, our family and friends.
There's probably a lot of them sitting in attics and basements and boxes because they don't have a record player.
Yeah, but we got quite a few of the tapes too. So.
Oh, terrific!
But anyway, Todd, I really appreciate hearing from you, and thanks for the encouragement.
Well, we will stay in touch.
All right, let's do that. You have a great time.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you, Bob.
Same to you, Todd. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Well, that was Robert Thatcher. I know him as Bob, and fascinating guy, and I'm going to figure out a way to get a guitar in his hands because he needs to have an acoustic guitar, and I own way too many of them. If you looked at my living room wall and part of my bedroom or office wall, you'd realize I do, and I could afford to get rid of one. I wonder if I can figure out a way, but I will. But anyways, to leave the show, and again, thanks so much for listening to the show, but let's leave with a Cape Cod Christmastime again.
Lakes and ponds begin to freeze. A chilly northern ocean breeze stirs brightly decorated trees. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time. Through the window, strewn and lighted, see the family so excited. Share with friends that they've invited. Cape Cod's Christmas time. Everybody thinks of snow, but if the weather's clear, Santa Claus may have to go by fishing boat this year. Spirits bright as winter moons, happy smiles, familiar tunes, walks across the frosty dunes. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time. Santa Claus may have to go by a fishing boat this year. People fill the churches when the Christmas pageants tell again of he who promised peace to men. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time. It's Cape Cod's Christmas time.
The Wispy Bob Music Acoustic Radio podcast series is produced by me, Todd Middle Initial C. Walker, at the Wispy Bob Music Studio in Frederick, Maryland. All the music on the podcast is played by permission from the artist. If you're enjoying the series, please feel free to share the link, wispymopmusic.podbean.com, and Podbean is spelled Podbean, or it is also on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and happy holidays to you.